Greetings, fellow makers! I'm Brittany Duran from Punished Props, and today I'm going to be making a wizard wand from Harry Potter. In the Harry Potter universe, there's all sorts of cool style wands, and Bill and I want to make our own. Bill is using a different kind of technique for his wand, so we put that in a different video. I'll link to it below, so make sure to go check out He Made His Wand. The way I'm doing it is very organic. A great material to use if you're going to make something that's pretty organic is Worbla. It's a kind of thermoplastic, and I have a whole bunch of scraps of it that I got a couple years ago, and you heat it up with a heat gun and then you can sculpt it into shape. I also have another kind of thermoplastic called Wonderflex, and it's very similar to Worbla except it has a mesh texture in it. So it's like got this nice structural mesh. I think I'm going to make the core of my wand out of the Wonderflex, so it's a little bit more sturdy, and then sculpt details around the outside in Worbla. I also have the newer kind of Worbla called Black Worbla, and it's a little bit easier to sculpt, so I hear. I've never used it before, so see how this all goes. Nice thing about these kind of thermoplastics is you can kind of get them into shape and then reheat them to sculpt even more detail. I don't have too much experience with these kinds of materials, so it'll be fun to play around with it and see what I come up with. I've taken some masking tape and just taped it right down to my cutting mat, and I can still see the ruler lines through the tape. I've started sketching out the design for my wand. I think I'm going to kind of have an organic-like dragon handle. Have it look like it's breathing fire, but the fire is gonna be the actual wand part. This is great to measure on a cutting mat though, because I know I want the wand to be almost 14 inches. So I can kind of, as I work, I can reference this template to make sure I keep everything to scale. And this part looks like it's about right for holding in my hand. I have a piece of the Wonderflex cut out. I have my trusty heat gun. One thing to consider is if you're going to be heating up thermoplastics, don't do it over just normal cutting mats. This cutting mat will warp if you heat it too much. So instead you want to use some kind of cutting board or big piece of wood. All right. And for those Harry Potter fans, yes, there needs to be a special kind of core inside your wand. In the lore, we know of things like phoenix feathers or unicorn tails. I don't have anything that mythical around the house, but I do have something that I think our fans will enjoy. Rare samples of Buddha cat's fur. That's right, I have both of our cat's furs in here because I can't separate it because it's all over our house. But Buddha Cat is going to be in the core of my wand. And it really doesn't take too much heat for it to kind of become floppy. I want to heat it a little bit more than this, but you can see that it's already becoming pretty pliable. Alright, in goes the majestic fur. Oh my gosh. Just by adding the kind of strong core structure inside this wand, it will help keep its shape. And there we go. Just by heating it, it did stretch a bit, so it's a little bit longer. I can always trim down the ends, and that's fine. My next step will be starting to cover all of this in more of the detailed Worbla and maybe some of the black Worbla. I've started using some of the black Worbla to do the kind of flame-looking part of the wand. The fun part about working with Worbla for this is I kind of want to keep all the seams and make it look all bunched up and wrinkly. I'll just trim this down a little bit to kind of give it a little bit of a pointy shape, and it's going to go about right here. And then I kind of like, I've been pinching the end a bit, kind of doing that kind of look. And so there's a part here that I didn't wrap it all the way around. If I heat this back up, I can probably smush it together there. Yep. I do have a popsicle stick that I sanded down the edge on so it's a little more rounded to work as a little bit of a sculpting tool if I want to get some more fine detail in there. I've started laying on some basic shapes for the handle, just bulking it out with layers of Worbla. I do want this to be structurally sound and a little heavier than the handle part. So I am doing solid Worbla, but you can always back this with like chunks of craft foam or crumpled up aluminum foil or something if you wanted to cut down on the material usage. I have all these old scraps and I'm just cutting them up and then heating them up. And this does take a little bit longer to heat than the black Worbla, and you can watch it change color a little bit. It really does feel like working with fruit roll-up. Alright, there's some more of the shape. I'll just start contouring everything a bit more, and then I think I'm going to use some more scraps of the black Worbla to do the final design. I've started with some of the shaping of the dragon head, and just kind of playing around with the different dimensions, using little bits of the black Worbla to start bulking out the shape. So this will be like a little nose thing. You really can just blend the different layers together, which is super handy. I can use my popsicle stick to try and kind of get the bottom of the nose shape in place without adding any more material. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Got some more layers of Worbla built up on here. It's all still pretty rough, but I'm still refining the shape. I've got the eyebrows a little thicker. I have these horns I sculpted, and they should curve around the top here. The nice thing about working with this material is it seems like there's a lot of room for do-overs, so if I don't like something, I can always change it. I'm just going to heat up a little bit more to make sure it stays in place. That's pretty cool. Back to adding more layers. I've been smoothing out the detail and kind of adding little bits of black Worbla to bulk up the shape even more. I'm pretty happy with it. I want to keep a kind of handmade look to it. I could probably spend hours refining the shape more to get a more interesting kind of dragon head, but I'm pretty happy with this. You can see a couple little crease areas where I haven't merged the Worbla layers together perfectly, so if I take some heat to that, I can smooth it out a bit more just using my fingers. So now I'm just about ready to start painting. Hooray! Alright, now I have this awesome hanger, so I can paint this guy. That works really well. So Worbla has a texture to it. It's especially noticeable on just the normal Worbla. The texture is a bit finer on the black Worbla. What a lot of people like to do for their first couple layers on top of this to help smooth out that texture is use a PVA glue like wood glue or Mod Podge. So the first couple layers I'm going to put onto my wand are going to be brushed on Mod Podge to kind of even out the texture. And you can even get some forced texture if you want. So like the flame part of my wand, if I want it to have more of a streaky look as the Mod Podge is setting, it only takes a couple of minutes for it to start setting. You can use a brush to kind of brush in the direction of the flames if you want to kind of keep that texture. You can add pigment to this. So my first layer, I'm going to be adding some, I think, black to it to give it a nice even black coat. After I get satisfied with the texture, then I'll just switch to normal acrylic paints on top of that. I think I'm just going to put a little bit of the pigment in here, not go overboard. If it's a thin layer, the Mod Podge will dry transparent. So it looks like I have a little bit of a lighter gray, but that'll all dry to more of a black. And this acrylic paint is a flow acrylic, so it's already pretty watered down. It has a good amount of pigment in there, but you don't really need to add water to it. To help avoid brush strokes, I'm going to be using a little sponge brush. So I want to make sure it gets in all the little detail areas, but you don't want to put it on so heavy it will start to drip. PVA glue will dry on its own just fine, but if you want to speed up the process, you can use a hair dryer. I've done 2 coats of the black pigment with the PVA glue. This part of the wand, I definitely want it to be like a bright orangey color to make it kind of look like flames. So far I've got this guy, and it looks a little bit more pastel and bright because I added Mod Podge to the mixture. So there's some white PVA glue in there that will dry transparent as long as it's a thin enough layer. I want to do like 5 layers of the PVA glue anyway, just to protect the surface, so by adding pigment to it, kind of helps speed up the whole process. I've got 2 layers of the orange brushed on. The second layer is drying right now. I think preferably I would like to use just a normal acrylic orange, but I don't have any. I just have the Cratex in orange. I don't even have any normal acrylic paint in yellow. What I do have is some blue. So I think I'm going to do the handle, start with some of the dark blue, mix with some more Mod Podge, and do a blue dragon, and maybe do the horns in like a tan color. Also, if you want, you can sand Mod Podge. So if you put a bunch of layers of this on there, you can lightly sand it down to get rid of some of the texture. I'm switching over to some of the Tamiya paints. This is a super bright orange, and I'm going to lightly brush that onto the flame part of my wand. Now I'm moving on to the light blue. I have a little chip brush here with some of the really light blue. I'm going to try and dry brush that on and see how it looks. I'll even do the same with the horns because I'll just paint over that later. I brushed on some of the satin gold airbrush paint on the flame area, and I like that. It adds a little bit of shimmeriness to it. I think I'm going to be crazy and try and brush on some of the fluorescent paint too. Yeah, that brings some of the nice orange color back. I freed the wire from the eye sockets, and I've started putting some dark blue paint in those areas to kind of bring some of the low spots back. The horns, I have a mixture of the just normal white acrylic paint and some brown, and I have a little bit of that shimmery gold stuff left I threw in there. They'll definitely need some kind of, maybe a dark wash on them. I have some water and black acrylic paint in this container here. They'll go down into all the crevices, and then I'll use a paper towel to start wiping off just the high points. If you're doing a wash, it's usually good to do some kind of clear coat protection so you don't start taking off the paint, but I'm in a hurry. We'll see how this looks. I like the darker wash in all the crevices here. I did lose some of my highlights, so I'm just gonna go back in with my dry brush again and bring some of those back. Wah! And just like that, my wand is done. I am ready for some spell casting. I really like the way this turned out. It was pretty fun to go from all of those raw materials of the different thermoplastics and come up with this guy. I haven't decided yet if I want to add an actual eyeball in this guy, but I think I like the way it is without it. I don't want too much attention drawn to this part of the wand. I want to kind of have it be enjoyed as a whole. If you would like to check out Bill's wand video, click on the video that'll probably be over here or over here to check out how he made his out of wood. Very different build than my little dragon organic flamey wand thing. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see some more of our live streams, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/punishedprops. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, you should. I will see you next time on Prop Live. Oh no! Oh! First person wizard battle! Haha! I won!